If you really are 100% committed and you're 100% sold on what you are doing, then that makes it easier to put yourself out there because that's who you are now.
So David, I'm excited to talk with you. I've gotten to know you quite a bit in the past couple of months. We spent time together out in Puerto Rico at the Fast Track Live training. Then I saw you at the Joe Homebuyer Conference. I saw you at Squad Up Summit. So it's been fun to kind of watch you really embrace real estate and really put yourself out there. You've invested heavily into your education and into really getting this off the ground. And you're someone that I look at that's like, yeah, this guy's going all the way. He's not just messing around here. It's not like, oh, I'll play around and see what happens, but I got my plan B in case it doesn't work. That's not you. A lot of people treat it that way, but not you. You're all in and you're on track to build a 6 and 7 figure business and empire. And so it's exciting to see you really lay the foundation. It's fun to hear your ideas and things you're working on and your projects. And what I'd love for you to do, David, is share, you've got a deal that you've got that you want to share and kind of break down. I love that. So we get to see like the inside of how you put a deal together, but maybe give us a quick, like a short summary of how you got started, how long ago it was, and what it was like to go from learning and taking education to taking action and putting it into practice.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting road for sure. Not easy, very difficult. But I started last year, at the beginning of last year, started following Pace Morby first, and then caught on to you from Pace Morby, and I joined your group first early last year and got my real estate license last year, and just had a lot going on. But one of the things that I first started doing was once I started listening and watching you and Pace and everything that you guys were doing, is that I just started talking to everybody, right? I told everybody that I knew. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I had already made a commitment in my mind. I knew that I could do it. I knew that it was real. And I decided and made a commitment that I was going to do this for the rest of my life, And so that's where I was like, just telling everybody, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do real estate investing. I'm going to get my realtor license. If you know of any deals that would be good for an investor, let me know. If you want to invest in real estate, let me know. If you want to learn about real estate investing, I'll teach you what I'm learning, right? Mm-hmm. And just whatever, And so just talking to everybody about it. And I just really got excited about it. And everybody could tell. Everybody I talked to knew, man, this guy's really going to do something with real estate. And so my first deal was actually brought to me by a friend of mine. He came to me and he said, hey, look, I got this neighbor that's selling his land and I think it can be subdivided. And I was like, okay, well, I'll take a look. So I went in and did some deep dive research into the market of what land is selling in the area, right? Went back a year or 2 years trying to figure out, okay, how much per acre and per square foot is land selling in this area? And I did an analysis and I figured out that it was a really good deal. And then it was like, okay, well, can it be subdivided? So I contacted the county. I talked to like multiple people at the zoning and planning offices and ended up at the office of the commissioner of the revenue in the county. And because it was the way it was zoned, it could not be subdivided, but it was naturally subdivided by the neighborhood road. And so the office of the commissioner of revenue got back to me and said, because it's naturally subdivided by the neighborhood road, it can be subdivided. And so that made it a really, really good deal. And so I locked it under contract. I gave it 30 days, due diligence to be able to do the perk test, to be able to do survey, make sure that both sides of the property could be perked, could be built on, did the survey.
Now, did you do that due diligence after you were under contract, or did you let an interested buyer do that due diligence? How did you handle that part?
No, I put it under contract and I spent the money myself to do that work because I knew in that area and, the analysis that I did, it was surrounded. I mean, it was a neighborhood. All the homes around there had already perked. I knew that it was highly likely that it was going to be just fine. Right. But I was willing to take that risk of a few $1,000s to do that work before I actually purchased it.
Let's talk about this a second, because one of the things when you take a land deal, especially where you're creating the value in this piece of land by either taking it all the way and doing the subdividing. Now you've got these individual lots. You just increased the value because you took something and made it more. Or you just figure out all the solutions, and now you've got the package of what can be done and approval and information, and then you're able to pass that on. Because one of the challenges we have, guys, or one of the values we bring to the market is solving problems. So let's say that David took that land deal and he got the contract, but he didn't do anything to figure out any of the problems. And then he took it to market. What's a buyer going to say? Well, can I subdivide it? And David would say, well, maybe, I don't know. Okay, does it perk? I don't know. Does it this? I don't know. What are my restrictions on building? I don't know. If David has to say, I don't know, then all he's done is he's taken the work that needs to be done to figure it out and passed it on. What value is there? Not very much, right? Maybe there's some value because you got it for a deal and someone else is willing to do that work, but they would be putting it under contract with a bunch of due diligence so that they can figure it out. So this is where, like, the reason why David's going to share how this turned into, a winning deal was because you grasp, David, the concept of solving problems for others and getting paid to do so. Mm-hmm. And you not only did you solve the problems, but you invested some of your money, not a lot, but some, into solving the problems. You're like, okay, if I can say to a buyer, it perks because I did the perk test. And guys, what that means is it means he's figuring out that you can get
septic in a well.
Septic, yeah, because one of the biggest things that might not allow you to build is if you can't put septic in because you have the wrong soils. And so that's one of the first things that a builder or an investor is going to want to know. And so David understands that much about the process that he's going to solve that problem and get the work done. So this is like, I've shared this before, I think, where this was in Paradise Valley, Arizona, and I was going to build this luxury home. And at the time I was doing, a fair amount of that in that market. And I bought a lot for around $1 million. I tore the house down, cost me maybe $25,000, I think $30,000. So we tore the house down. Then I hired an architect. We designed a 7,500 square foot or 8,000 square foot house. So that cost me another 30, 40 grand. I went through the whole process to get the permit. That took time and money to go through and get the permit. They redline it, send it back. You go through revisions. Then I got the permit approved. So now it's what we call shovel ready. And then I marketed the deal and I flipped it for almost $1 million more. I flipped it for around I bought it for $1 million, spent 100 plus on the value add, the things, and then sold it for 2.1 or something like that. It ended up being almost $1 million flip. But all I did was I handed to a builder a shovel ready lot. I said, here's the plans, here's the permit, it's yours. And he had a client, they wanted to build right now. They didn't want to spend a year or 18 months to do what I took a year to do. And so that was the value I brought to the market. And that value paid me handsomely. So this is very similar to what you're doing, David. I mean, a smaller scale, but you're basically saying, okay, here's this lot that has the potential to be divided into 4, right? With a 4.
Just
two.
two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's this lot. It can be divided into 2. 2 lots now can sell individually for X. And so now I'm adding the value by doing now some legwork with zoning and perking and these things.
Yep.
And so again, I just wanted to kind of I don't want to gloss over what you're doing there, David, because you are now investing in your deal to create the value that now someone else will pay you for.
Yeah. And I didn't figure all that out. The only reason I figured all that out was because I made a lot of phone calls, right?
You asked the right questions.
I asked the right questions, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't go into it blindly. I had to figure it out. The deal that actually, so kind of get on track with, that deal is actually still in the works because there's a cemetery on one of the plots. And the county came back and said I had to do an archaeological survey. So I just completed that a couple weeks ago. But the deal that made me the money last year was 2 weeks after I put that one under contract. Because I had been doing all the searching on Zillow and Redfin and everything, another property came up in my backyard for sale that was bigger than that other lot and less expensive. And so I looked at it, I'm like, this is like dirt cheap, like really
Hmm.
cheap. And so I immediately called the agent. So I was the first one to call the agent. It was Saturday. That Monday, I put it under contract. It was a 4.67 acre lot. Got it under contract for 155,000. I just basically had the same plan: go in, do the perk test, do the survey. I did that. The survey came back and it was actually, I purchased it as 4.67 acres. The survey actually didn't get done until after I purchased it. That's another story. But anyways, it came back that it was 7.26 acres. So I got 2.5 acres for free.
Hmm.
And it perked for a 5 bedroom, 5 bedroom home. So I was able to market it as, it's perked, it's surveyed, it's ready to be built on. And I was able to make over $100,000 on that one.
Wow. Isn't that
So,
cool?
yeah.
And so that one okay, so let's run through the numbers then. So you got that was listed with an agent. You were speed to the deal. And oftentimes with listed stuff, if it's priced aggressively, how quickly are you able to get to that agent? Did you double end it with the agent?
Yeah. So they wouldn't do the dual agency. They did designated agency. So
Okay,
they assigned another agent in the office,
perfect.
but
Yeah, same idea.
it was listed for 135. I would have locked it under at 135, but he couldn't get the other agent to get in contact with me until Monday. By the time she got in contact with me, she told me there was already multiple offers.
Ah,
So that's where I immediately, I asked her, I was like, well, where do I need to come in at? And she's like, well, if you're about, 16, $17,000 more. And I said, well, let's just go $20,000 more. Cause I knew that was still a good deal.
still a deal. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Oh, how frustrating that you could have done it on Saturday. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you got it at 150,
155.
155. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you got the contract, and then tell us again, where did you go to get your buyer?
So I actually ended up using, a local agent to list it on the market. And, I
So you
actually
took
ended
it
up,
down. You took it down and bought it.
yeah, took it down and bought
Gotcha.
it. So I had a friend in my, ward in my church that ended up, helping with the investment part of it,
Mhm.
to buy it and everything. And
He
so
funded you on
he
the
funded. Yep.
PML. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So he funded you. You purchased it.
hmm
You knew you had a smoking deal, and then you just turned around and relisted.
No, I did the, perk test first.
Right.
So had the perk test. I looked at the lot and I figured out where the best area for the house was going to be, and I had them perk in the area that I wanted them to. And they asked me, how much do you want it to perk for? And I was like, as many bedrooms as you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And came back 5 bedroom, which is ideal, especially for this area. The interesting thing is I asked the company that did the perk test, Dominion Soil. I said, should I do the survey? Would it be a good idea to do the survey? And she told me, no, you don't really need to. You could, but it's probably sixes, right? So at first I didn't do the survey. And that's where
Meaning, would I need that for a buyer who's interested? Yeah.
yes,
Because the
exactly.
survey is going to tell you exact boundary lines and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it was after I purchased it, and I can't remember, there were some issues with listing it, and people were asking about the survey, and I was just like, yeah, I should have just done the survey. And so this was after I listed it, I had the survey done.
And
And
what'd that
so
cost you?
it wasn't that
A couple
much.
grand,
Yeah,
1,500
it
bucks.
wasn't. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
$1,500, $1,200. It wasn't
Yeah.
that much. And so that's where like we listed it as 4.67 acres, and we were having a hard time, getting a decent amount for it. And people kept asking about the survey and all this stuff. And so we did the survey, and that's when it came back at 7.26 acres. So we had to update the listing, right? And
Which
then
was like just a little hidden surprise. Like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So how cool is that? Yeah. I almost now, David, and you probably will from now on too. Any of my lot deals, I do the survey and I do the zoning and I
Oh
do
yeah.
I clear the lot if it's got stuff on there, like as much as I can because again, when a buyer looks at that, they're going to ask, is there a survey? And if you can say yes, it makes their job a lot easier to say yes to your deal.
Yeah. Yep.
So my goal, I always look at it like this. How do I present a deal that people can't say no to?
Mhm.
And so think of the things they're going to ask you, and can you check the box where you have the answer to that? And if you can, then you have a compelling deal.
Yeah.
You know,
And understanding like some of the big lessons I've learned from all of this is like understanding the local codes, the zoning ordinances,
mm-hmm.
understanding, how friendly is the county with certain zoning. I mean, if you have to change, zones, if depending on the county and the location, it can be very, very, very
Yeah,
difficult. Like here where
and
I live,
lengthy.
it's like impossible if you want to change zoning to be able to make more houses or, more lots or whatever. It's
Mhm.
like impossible right now.
Yeah, you got to
And
go through
so,
meetings and revisions, and it could take a year to get rezoned.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
I avoid that at all costs. If I'm looking at a lot deal, first thing I'm checking is what is the zoning, what's allowed there. If it's allowed for what I want to do, then I'm going to do, more research to figure out has it already been perked, has it already been surveyed,
yeah,
and I, like you said, I will always, if I do this again, which I probably will because there's a lot of land around here. I would definitely do the survey every single
yeah.
time. I mean, it's not the expense is not that much
We have a
compared to.
deal right now that I bought with Mark Gabriel in Tulsa, and I want to say we bought it for like 40. It's a lot. Bought it for like 40,000, but it's worth 250 if we get the rezoning. So we're just going through it. I mean, there's such a big spread there, and it was such a low cost to get into the deal that I told him, I said, we're just going to buy this one, and if it takes us 6 months or longer, and we called and they said, no, it's a fairly simple process. You got to do these steps, but it shouldn't be a problem. I'm telling you right now, verbally, I don't see why we wouldn't rezone it. So they gave us a lot of confidence before we did the deal. Now we could get in there and find out it's not, but it feels like it is. And then, so we're going to go through the rezoning because we know that we increase the value tremendously once we get it rezoned. So it's not like you never rezone. It just means, what's the trade-off for the time and energy to get it rezoned. But a survey is a very inexpensive way to add a lot of value to your deal, is getting the survey done.
Yeah. And I've gotten connected with some larger developers and stuff. I have one developer who's like, if you find me anything that can be divided into 20 lots or more, I'll buy it all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So I have connections where I can, refer deals to larger developers or builders and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the other piece is like just networking, like you talked about going to your local meetups and stuff. Like I joined the local builders association. I've connected with amazing people there. And just most of the deals that I'm getting nowadays are all referral,
Yeah.
organically referred to me from other people around my area. So,
And David, that's because you put yourself out there. I mean, I've seen you do this personally where you're in a room. I've been in a couple now rooms where there's a lot of people there, all real estate people, and you go up and you introduce yourself, you talk to everybody, you find out what people are doing, you share what you're doing, and you're doing that now, and you're seeing the benefit of that. And I've just seen you do that a little bit at some like large scale type of rooms, but if you're doing that on a local level, you keep doing that and it's going to keep paying off. And that's what I was talking about earlier, guys, where you really want to do as much as you can to build a local presence, because in that market, it's actually the real estate investing community within a local market is very small. It doesn't take long before everybody knows who you are. And then if you perform, then now that spreads like wildfire because you don't even know it, but they're talking about you behind your back about how you did this deal or that deal. Or when people are like, they interact with you and it's a positive experience and they do a deal, they're now telling everybody else, oh man, you got to talk to David. We did a deal together and he brought the buyer, or he did this or that, and it worked out well for me. And next thing you know, people are calling you.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that happen with you. So it's great.
The other thing that I started doing after San Diego was when Brent Daniels talked about going on to Facebook 7 minutes a day and starting to friend people in your local area. And I've been doing that, and that's been huge. And, getting on social media, doing videos, posting on Instagram, posting on YouTube, sharing on Facebook and Instagram, etc. Like I went to a meetup not too long ago, a local meetup, and somebody's like, hey, I know you. I saw you on Facebook, or I saw you on Instagram, and so it's just like, those things pay off because people start reaching out to you, and just, every day I get new messages, new friend requests, people wanting to talk to me about doing deals together. Right after this, I have a call to make to somebody that wants to, potentially be a lender to help fund some of my deals. So just keep putting yourself out there.
It's true. I mean, even within like the fast track community here, I mean, it's a small community, but people like Keith Warren that participate, they share, they get loud. I call it get loud. I'm watching David do that right now. Nitzik, he's very active. He participates, he comments, he shares, and everybody's watching. Everybody's getting comfortable with him. They're seeing him, and that all creates so much return benefit to you, right? So like, guys, keep doing that. Get loud. Share on your social. It doesn't matter if you have 100 followers or 10,000 or whatever. None of that matters. What matters is you start where you're at and you start to share and network and build connections, and all of that's going to come back to you 100-fold. It's more of I think what it is, David, is it's less about, are you doing a good job networking at this group or that group? It's more about a mindset of getting outside of yourself and sharing and overcoming the fear of talking to people. It's more of a way of being that is going to show up in everything you do. That's going to result in a lot of benefit.
I think it also comes down to showing that you're 100% committed in yourself and what you're doing, right? If you really are 100% committed and you're 100% sold on what you are doing, then that makes it easier to put yourself out there, because that's who you are now, right? That's just part of who you are. And so you just naturally talk to people about it because that's what you're doing all the time, every day, So.
Yeah. And you even said that in the very beginning. You said that when you first started, you told everybody you're a real estate investor.
Yep.
Friends, family, everybody that I'm a real estate investor. I'm a real estate investor. Not I'm a newbie. Yeah. Don't ever say that.
Right.
Don't ever say that. Yeah. And then you get a referral from, who was it? A family or somebody you said?
A friend. Yeah.
A friend. Yeah. A friend gave you a referral. That would have never happened had you not been willing to go up to your friends and say, hey, I'm a real estate investor.
Yeah.
You guys hear about something, let me know.
My other friend wouldn't have given me money if I hadn't talked to him about it. Right. Yeah. And none of it would happen if I hadn't been opening my mouth and talking to anybody and everybody about it and being excited about it and being 100% committed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I first started, David, in real estate, I had a very small circle, very small connection. There wasn't this online presence like there is today, because this was 20 years ago. But what I did is I went to church, and you and I are in the same church, so you know exactly what I'm about to say. And what I did is I walked around the parking lot. I picked the nicest cars, because at the time, this was my only gauge of like what somebody successful was the car they drove. I've since learned that that's the biggest falsehood ever. Right. But I saw the nice cars. I figured out who drove those nice cars. And then I went to them and I said, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I've got this deal right now that I need funded. Just wondering, would you like to be an investor and fund me on my deal? And all I was going off of was the car they drove, and not afraid to ask. And it was crazy. I mean, 1 in 10 people would say, let's go to lunch. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you're doing. And then a certain percentage of them would start to give me money. And I got a whole bunch of private money lenders from church, just because I was willing to say, I'm a real estate investor. Can you give me money? And, having no other idea if they had any money other than they drove a nice car. Or I would figure out what house, if I ever learned what house they lived in, if it was a nice house, I would do this. I would assume the same thing. Oh, they have a nice house, they must have money.
Right.
But hey, it's a start, right? Like, it's something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I love that. That's great. So then you relisted it, and a buyer came through just on market through the MLS, or being an active listing, a buyer came for. Yeah. Perfect. Mm-hmm. That's what I call a takedown. Like that's a takedown deal there, guys, where you get the deal, you see it to the finish line, you buy it, you fund it. In your case, you did a little bit of value add, spent probably $3,000 or $4,000 getting the things figured out, took it to market, sold it, made $100,000, on the spread there. So very cool story. Love that, David. What's been your biggest, I mean, you've shared some great nuggets here, but for somebody listening that's maybe brand new, what would be your advice to them?
Well, I would not recommend starting out the way I started out because I feel like I kind of skipped some rungs, right? Like if I was to recommend anything to anybody, I would recommend start out wholesaling, to be completely honest, because I think you said it, and I think it is true. It's the lowest entry or lowest barrier to getting into real estate investing. And I think it's the most important thing to learn for anybody getting in as a newbie, because it's going to be the easiest way for you to get to cash quickly. Right.
Yeah.
And so like I've had so many deals that are not wholesaling happen that now I'm trying to backtrack, right? I'm trying to kind of get back down to that level of wholesaling and build up from there. But right now I have all these deals that are happening that are not wholesaling, that are more distractors, right? Away from that. So I would recommend to anybody that's new, just really focus and become really, really good at wholesaling and follow that model of building a successful wholesaling business first before getting into fix and flipping or buy and holds. I really do believe that that's the smart way to go, which I did not do that.
Yeah. And that's a conversation you and I have had, and you've heard me talk about that live a little bit, but guys, there's nothing better than building out a cash producing active income business model that when that's dialed in and that's being somewhat consistent and it's paying the bills, it's giving you extra cash every month, right? Now you can start to look at, bigger plays, bigger moves, more time consuming. You're in the deal a lot longer. You can weather through those deals when you've got the cash coming in over here. And the best way to produce that fast, active cash is wholesaling. Like there's no faster way than that. So I'm so glad, David, that you've really grasped onto that concept. It's fantastic advice. If you're watching this right now, if you take away that one nugget from David, that might be the biggest thing that gets you to your goals and the fastest path there. Because David, you know this too, because you've met these same people where their list of strategies is like a mile long. I do this, I do that, I do co-living, I do apartments, I do land, and yet when you talk to those people, they're still working on their first deal and they're so distracted trying to learn and do so many things that they never actually do anything very well. Mm-hmm. And hyper focus, guys, it means it's boring, it means it's mundane, it's monotonous, but it's that consistency and it's that hyper focus that's going to produce the results. And that's what we're after, is results at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. As Keith said it, jack of all trades, master of none. I'd rather be really, really good at one or two things than okay at a lot of things.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So great advice. Well, guys, leave a comment and say, David, you're a flipping genius. Whenever you can do a deal and make six figures, I mean, there's nothing better than that. And I think that deal, like you're all in, like you bought in wholeheartedly to real estate. And guys, you're a Joe home buyer too. So it's fun to see you participating in that community. Mm-hmm. And just super proud of you, David. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.